Tilburg University presents TAISIG Talks, the podcast that keeps you updated on the latest developments in the field of artificial intelligence in just 1 hour.
Hello, my name is Peter Spronk. I'm a professor of computer science at Tilburg University, and I'm introducing here the 22nd edition of the TAISIG Talks. This is the first TAISIG Talk of 2024. I am the host here, and I have a co-host, and that is Eamon. Eamon, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Eamon Temur. I'm a PhD researcher at Tilburg Law School, and I am currently working on manipulative algorithms and their regulation through the human rights framework.
Right, and we are here with our guest today, a single guest. It's Bart van der Sloot, and Bart wrote a book which was very recently published. It's called Regulating the Synthetic Society, Generative AI, Legal Questions and Societal Challenges. Bart, can you quickly introduce yourself and then tell us what the book is about and who it is meant for, please?
Wow, that's a lot. So I'm Bart van der Sloot. I work at the Tilburg Institute for Law, Technology and Society. So that's also the mission of myself, to combine law, technology and societal aspects. So in this case, it's about artificial intelligence. A lot of people know about it, and specific aspects of it are discussed in this book. So deep fakes, robotics, augmented reality and virtual reality are kind of the main things topics I discuss. And I try to show like how it's used for good, for bad, and what are the larger potential societal implications of those technologies. Some of those are bad or potentially dangerous, and I ask, is the law fit to address those dangers? And the answer to some extent is no, and so I also discuss what potential changes should be made to the regulatory regime. And so the book is open access, so I hope also a link can be put in the show notes. You can just click on it, download it for free, and it's actually meant for everyone. I try to read it pretty accessible. It's written in an easy way to lawyers, but also non-lawyers, to academics, but also laypersons. I think everyone would be able to read it, except chapter 5. It's law. It's a long chapter. This is really for lawyers, but the rest, it describes the technology, the applications, gives you an insight into the societal challenges it brings. And I think this is really important, and I really hope everyone would read it, because my biggest concern right now is that AI will have a huge impact on society. And I think especially in Europe, the discussion is pretty much absent. It's in niche corners, but it should be the biggest societal debate right now. It affects personal relationships, it affects elections, it affects truth, rule of law, etc., etc., etc. So I really hope, and it's for free, so I feel no shame advertising it. Please download it, send it to everyone you think it might be relevant to, and share it as much as possible.
Okay. That's a good introduction, I think. Maybe I can ask one question up front, or maybe a remark, which you can probably respond to. Is that I read part of the book, and indeed I ended at the law chapter. I thought, okay, I'm not going to tackle that one right now. I didn't have that much time. But you start each chapter with a fairly long quote, usually of some political lawmaker or a governmental agency. Mm. And I noticed that, for instance, we see a citation of Ursula von der Leyen, and that is really positive about AI, and that is going to solve the CO2 problem, and it's going to strengthen democracy. And I was thinking, isn't it just the opposite? And although I saw later on some quotations that were actually the opposite of this again. So maybe you can say something about this.
This is precisely what I wanted to show. There's a kind of conflicted attitude also in the European Union, but you see that also in the United States. There's always been a hugely positive aura of technology. It's going to solve things, it's going to make life better and quicker and easier and what have you. This is also kind of the rhetoric you still hear, but it's funny in a way with AI. There's already quite in the early stages, there's caution, especially like the people that are most cautious are the technologists themselves. They believe like this is going to have a huge impact. We need to be regulated. So before, with the internet when it arose, or social media, technology companies really pushed back, didn't want to be regulated at all. And now they're calling for it themselves, actually. And for example, in the United States, where the AI movement is arguably the biggest, most technology experts have their own P-doom. So the chance that something will really go wrong. And I discussed that recently in Europe, and people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? This is scaremongering and stuff like that. But no, this is actually a real fear, and we have to worry about it. So both things are actually, I think, true. Like I also discuss in the book many ways in which artificial intelligence could actually help people. Like augmented reality could help blind people navigate the street, for example. That's hugely advantage. Robotics can help surgery with precision surgery. AI can invent new medicines and drugs. So we shouldn't like only scaremonger people, but be very mindful. Like, do we want to use AI? If so, for what type of applications do we want it for? And under which limitations or restrictions do we want it?
Okay, yeah, you tackle 4 main topics. Which one shall we take on first?
As a tech pessimist, I think I would like to start off with deepfakes. And we've seen this terminology being used in headlines and also in a lot of articles. Could you maybe just give us a brief definition of what a deepfake is and how it is produced?
Right. A deepfake is... It depends on your definition, but it's usually a video, but it can also be an audio fragment in which you pretend to be someone else or have someone say something or do something with that person never did or say. So, for example, you can have Biden say, I will vote Trump this year or something like that. Or one of the biggest applications is for sex. So women are targeted and made into porn actress in all kind of movies. So you could, someone who has never even shared a nude photo whatsoever could still be made to look like to act in a porn movie. So this could have huge disadvantage effect on women, their position. Especially my worry is if you're a tech pessimist, then this is a good way to start, because about 95% of all deepfakes, it's estimated, are used against women without their consent to make dirty videos or pictures. And my worry especially is that in the Netherlands, the biggest example of that was Welmoed. So she's Welmoed and the Sex Fakes was a documentary she made. She's a national television host. But she's already a grown-up woman, and you saw with her how much impact it already made, seeing herself in a video like that, on her family, on her friends. And this is already harmful, but when you see it applied to schoolgirls growing up in their puberty, this has such a catastrophic effect that I really worry about it. And then there's fake news as well, for example. It's used to influence democratic elections a lot. Not only in the West, but in particularly in the global South, where there are less safeguards against the use of deepfakes, where you can have Russia, Iran, China kind of use those technologies to put in friendly regimes or get a contract, an oil contract, or have them vote in a certain way in the UN resolutions, etc., etc.
I'm also thinking of the use of deepfakes possibly during trials, so in courtrooms. And is there, because at this point it's really blurry what the truth might be when technologies like deepfakes are, they can be accessed by anyone, any kind of material can be produced. So what do you recommend would be the best way for judges or lawyers to be able to discern what's actual evidence and what's not real evidence in court? Because that's where the truth matters almost. It's really important, the truth in that setting. So,
yeah, there two applications where I worry, like in the rule of law, the judiciary, and also media. I think both need to rely on content, also content brought by citizens, shared on the internet. And the estimation right now, and it's not only deepfakes, but it's also what is called cheap fake or small fake or just manipulations. But the estimate is that in 3-4 years' time, around 90% of all online content will be either fully AI generated or manipulated by AI. So this means that right now in the media, but also with the judiciary, the presumption is, if you get evidence, this is authentic unless there are contraindications, right? And this model no longer works. It should be the other way around. Like it's presumably fabricated by AI or manipulated in some way. And this can be very small manipulations. Like if you do video calling, for example, your skin tone is equalized a bit, usually, or higher tones of audio are filtered out. So it's not always a relevant manipulation, but sometimes it is. Like I give the example, if you go to a dermatologist, an online consult, if your skin tones are more equalized, that means a lot for diagnosis. So, but the question should be, okay, this is highly likely to be generated or manipulated by AI. How is this done? By whom is this done? Is it relevant to either the court case or the media report? So we should really radically shift the presumption. And then the question is, like you say, how do you do that? And we're not really ready for it. I know the police authorities, both in the Netherlands, but also other police authorities, are already like desperate, basically, because they get so much evidence between brackets by people of crimes or what have you. Also, courts are dealing with fake evidence. Like right now, you could still mostly determine, okay, this is presumably fake because citizens don't have access to highly advanced deepfake technologies, but this is coming within 1 or 2 years. So, and then you don't know anymore. Okay, you have a custody case. Mother submits evidence that father is screaming to their children with a video. Is it real? Is it fake? You don't know anymore. So one potential solution, but this again requires a lot, is watermark and waterproof every email, every satellite image, every picture, every video, and just show per photo video, like, hey, this was taken then and then by that and that person and was shared there and there, then was manipulated by this. And if it has no watermark, then you shouldn't be allowed to bring it into as evidence. But already I fear like we're too late already. It's happening right now. Like if I can give an example, the companies that are developing AI right now, they are kind of stopping training their data on contemporary internet platforms because they say it's already polluted too much with AI generated content. So you would create a feedback loop. Right now, AI is only learning from AI itself. So they use pre-2022 data sets. So much AI generated content is already online. So I hope people are listening to this podcast and then realize we have to act right now.
Yeah, it's funny that you remarked that technologists tend to be more cautious about this stuff because, yeah, I know that I have been saying that and my colleagues have been saying that, that the information that you find on the internet, it's so easy. So if I have software that can generate a web page for me just on the basis of nothing, I can say, well, generate 1,000 web pages and they're there. And then you're going to train the AI on that. And that has so many consequences. So there's not only the consequences that if it's the AI generated, it's probably not true, but it's also reinforcing itself because it's trained on that again. And that not only means that it gets less and less useful. The whole internet has becoming less and less useful in the last 20 years, and now is going to be rapidly increasing how much there is in nonsense on the internet. But also, things are stopping developing. That because if you don't get any new things in there, no human creativity, etc., AI is not learning anything new. It's just repeating what is already there. maybe that's the least worry, but it is still a worry.
No, it's still worrying, and if you want to save the positive applications of AI, you need to prevent this kind of feedback loop or system collapse, as it's sometimes called. So it's important to be mindful of that. Yeah.
I think maybe next we can move on to something that's more, I've mostly seen this in science fiction, so humanoid robots. And you talk about, in your book, you discuss humanoid robots, and you also entertain the possibility of robots having rights and how we can potentially imagine a future where robots will be working side by side with human beings. So would you maybe elaborate on that, of how we can maintain a relationship between machines and human beings while also staying true to our superior ethical values and principles?
Yeah, this is a topic which is discussed already. Again, like to most people, and even most informatics people, computer scientists, this is a bit like far removed still. But again, the people that are entertaining this thought are the people that are developing AI at Google, at Microsoft. So at Microsoft, there's a paper written, a big paper called Sparks of Intelligence. And they don't say there is intelligence yet with these robots and AI, but they say it's way more than just an auto fill in next word type of AI. And in Google, some people have resigned actually because they believed AI had already reached the point what is called like artificial general intelligence, or sentient. So they have become aware of themselves as a being. If I have to guess, but I'm not an expert in this front, no, probably right now still not. But it's
95% of the AI specialists say,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that's not the
Yeah.
case. This is nonsense.
Yeah. But also the Microsoft ones say, well, it's getting closer to there. And the more we develop, it might get there. Even if you say this will never happen, and this is still the majority view, maybe it will never happen. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Well, you say, I think the majority view is it will happen, but definitely not as fast as people think it is. Maybe not during our lifetimes. You will not see that.
Okay, I listened recently to a variety of people like working at Google and Microsoft, and their prediction is in 10 years' time. So but again, I don't know. I don't want
But
to
that
be...
depends on where you
Yeah.
where you draw the line, because there's
But
intelligence, not your intelligence or not intelligent. It is a
Exactly.
very gliding scale.
So
yeah.
that is we're moving towards that point, and when it is that we reach it, it will not be in the next few years. Shortest prediction, 10 years, maybe 50 years, who knows. But the more intelligent and the more sentient they become, the question becomes, what do we do if we suppose we reach that point of artificial general intelligence, sentience, being. You cannot use it as an instrument to your pleasure. Like right now, they're used in factories, in warfare, for sex robots, you name it. But if it has sentience and it has self-awareness and it is intelligent in a way that is comparable to human beings, then we should also give it rights. And that is the argument being made. And especially, like, I think this might go quicker than you might think, because, well, maybe you're too young, but in my childhood, there was this Tamagotchi. Have you ever heard
I've
of
heard
it?
of Tamagotchis.
Yeah.
Yes, they're like online pets, like
No,
digital
it was
pets.
like a tiny computer, and it's just black and white screen, but it's supposed to be your pet baby or something. And if you didn't give it attention, then after 2 days it would die. And then people just cried, and they wanted to revive it, and they got attached to the Tamagotchi, which was an egg-shaped nothing, really. It was nothing. It was in the 1990s. And also like you see really premature robots being given to elderly people. They are sometimes lonely, and they have a robot to speak to. And these can do basically nothing. Just say, hello, how are you? And maybe sing a song or something. And there were experiments that after a month they were taken away again, and people said, no, I want to keep my robot. So even right now, the emotional attachment to these type of robots is already growing, and the more sentient, the more intelligent they get, the more probably we should treat them as humans or comparable to it. And also the other way around, the argument is, yeah, if you don't give them rights, you keep treating them as instruments, they will never develop as a full being in a way. So that is the discussion that's been had. And then the question is, of course, what do you do with that? Like, what does that mean actually? Like, in human rights terms, you have the right to life. Yeah, what does right to life mean for a robot? Like, you can put it back together if it's broken, or upload the intelligence to via the cloud, or what have you. Or what does it mean, a right to marry and found a family? What does that mean? So you cannot one-on-one apply the current human rights framework to robots. But if they become the more and more sentient they become, the more and more intelligent they become, the more and more you have to give them protection of some kind. Just like we normally feel more moral hesitation with hurting or killing a monkey, which is closer to us than a mosquito, for example.
Because in the news, we can already see a lot of people saying that they're marrying holographic girlfriends or boyfriends. So it's already human beings asserting their right to have married lives. So it would be also interesting to see if a robot or something of that nature could also assert the very same right. So it's really a very developing and an interesting area.
Yeah, but let's say I find this discussion actually a bit dangerous. And the reason that I find it dangerous is that I think this is looking at the wrong problem. I know the paper that you mentioned, the Sparks of Intelligence paper. It is a kind of they try to make a challenging title to the paper. I personally think, and I think I can show that, but I won't do that here, that it will be a long way off, that we're really nowhere near a computer that has sentience. And if you're going to focus on that problem, so the rights of computers, that's not a problem that we have to deal with today or in the coming 10 years. The problems that we have to deal with are, you actually mentioned some of them already, are much worse than this particular problem. Well, I agree, of course, that if ever robots would become sentient, of course, we have to talk about their rights, and that will develop, but it will take such a long time before we get there. And you can see that because the thing is, well, you have two sides to this story, of course. One is that you say people get emotionally attached. Yes, that is a problem. The problem, the robot is sentient and now should have rights. That is not a problem. And
not right now. No, I fully agree. So this is more like a discussion which might be in 10 years, 20 years, 30, 50 years times. But it's still a relevant discussion to be had. It's not the biggest part in my book. No. It's something I mention as something that lawyers should eventually think about. And I think it's important to already think about it a bit right now, what to do with it, because it's a very complicated discussion. Should they have voting rights, and what would that mean, for example? But I agree, this shouldn't be the main discussion point. Like also with AI and humanoid robots, there's so much more acutely dangerous stuff happening right now with the AI turning against humans potentially, or doing uncontrolled stuff. So that is, I think, more acute. But this is a relevant discussion, at least for lawyers, to be had.
Also with humanoid robots, just one thing that I think of is that if they do damage to a human being, or if they do damage to their surroundings, how do you ascertain responsibility? Because there's one school that says the responsibility should lie with the producer or the manufacturer. One group says that it should be with the programmer. And then there's another group that says there should be a mitigated kind of responsibility. So how do you think that we can trace responsibility when humanoid robots will eventually start working with human beings? There will be more overlaps and interactions.
This is so difficult, this topic. And I think no one has the right answer yet. And so there's usually with all these technologies, there's a huge value chain. Like there are people that gather data and train algorithms on it. There are people who curate the algorithm, then apply to a certain context, put it in a humanoid robot or without humanoid robot. Then it's applied to a certain setting. It has user commands which make it do something or not do something. And all those steps in between, and the people who gather data, curate it, build the algorithm, apply it, and then the user, they have influence on how the AI responds. So I think law could make just it clearer in that respect and just assign responsibility to one party or the other. And there's always, because right now, if something goes wrong, you'll end up nowhere because everyone would blame the other guy basically, right? And so their law should just say, no, you are responsible, whoever that is. And I would vote not the user probably, because citizens are usually not the most professional party that should be held liable, but maybe someone closest to the actual problem at hand should just be responsible. Like, for example, there's an example in the data context, so the General Data Protection Regulation. It acknowledges that there may be multiple parties responsible. It's called controller in the legal realm, but you can have, for one data process, more controllers. If something goes wrong, as for example, you're harmed as a citizen, you could go to any of those controllers and blame them fully and get your compensation money from either of those parties. So something like that could really help also in the AI context, I think.
Okay, so we discussed now the deepfakes, and we discussed the humanized robots, and we may get back to them a little bit. But two more topics in the book, which I was lumping together a little bit, as virtual reality and augmented reality. And actually, when I heard that your book was about that, I couldn't really see the actual AI problems in these technologies. But maybe you can explain a bit where these problems lie and what we need to do about them.
Well, it depends on what you call problems. So I think with all these technologies, there are also deepfakes. So we only discussed the negative use cases, but there are a lot of positives as well. And with augmented reality and virtual reality, I think there are a lot of positive use cases as well. So again, I wouldn't only, and my book is not only about problems. It's also a nice book, like the future is coming, what can we do with it? And so augmented reality and virtual reality are both important in that respect. I think augmented reality is used for, what I told, like blind people navigating the streets, or you can translate something in a foreign language, or you can, with virtual reality, you can travel to other parts of the country or the world, have virtual sex if you like to. So there's all these very positive aspects to it. And yeah, if you go to the more dangerous or negative aspects, I think for me, what all these four technologies combine is that we create a new reality, so a synthetic reality or what have you. So this is what ties them all, which is why I wanted to discuss them combinedly. And this is just the overarching topic of this book, is what do we do in this new reality? Who has access to the truth? How do you verify what truth is? But also, who controls the truth or this new reality? And here, I think that's abundantly clear, especially with augmented reality and virtual reality. Who is controlling those techniques? It's mostly the Silicon Valley parties in the United States. It's commercial parties with profit motives. And that is something I worry about. So you get a privatization of the truth. These are also used not only online or in virtual reality, but also in physical reality, which is turned in part to become AI inspired or AI influenced. And who controls that? Those are the private commercial parties. So this is something I worry about more in general. I worry about what it does to the norms being embedded in AI. And these, again, are now mostly left up to the commercial parties. And then if you see like VR games where you get points if you rape women, for example, it's just an example, but it's an important one. Do you want it? Do you don't want to have that? And the same is with robots. Like, okay, if you have a care robot in a care home, who determines when a diagnosis is made, how it's made, who is alarmed by a certain diagnosis. All those decision points are right now with private parties in Silicon Valley. And that is for me something more in general, what is worrying me.
I think I would also maybe want to add in the class divide, because with a lot of these technologies, at least right now, they're very, very expensive. They're not accessible to everyone. With the new Apple Vision Pro being on the market, and if you look at the price tag, students can't afford it. People who have incomes that they can't really have access to that kind of technology. But that technology, if it does good to particular people. So for example, I've seen videos of people using the Apple Vision Pro to say measure their food, or to track their vitals, like their heart rate and their sleep quality. And those are good things. So those are positive use cases, but it does somehow exacerbate the class divide as well. So these technologies, even if they are good, we have to also maybe think about who they're good for, and does that how does that affect the overall quality of life between different groups of people?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the worries. Like, it's probably the richer, more affluent people who can afford all these new technologies, and all I could imagine if a care robot would be deployed in a public facility, it would be of a lower quality than rich people could afford. So the level of diagnosis might be different, the level of accuracy might be different, or more personal data may be scraped by those companies. So there's always a trade-off, and this is indeed like what AI only exacerbates. So this is one of the more general worries for me. What is another worry is actually the people are increasingly already living in their own reality. And so this is again only exacerbated by AI. And so you can have AI personalized and just give it the feedback loop you want personally and remove all friction in life. For example, that's also what I think with people want a relationship with an AI robot. That is because they want to remove friction in a normal relationship. And you can see the intuitive appeal to that, and also getting news that confirms your worldview and not contrast with it. But for me, like, a relationship is friction. That is what it means to have a relationship with someone. And discussing that and getting to know each other, and sometimes your partner saying something which really hurt you, but after 2 days you think, oh, actually the person was right. Like, that is a relationship. That's what makes it valuable. And we're going to remove, or this is at least the aim of many of those AI applications, remove the friction. And you get like one-dimensional people from that. So this is another bigger effect that might be had.
Yeah, well, I would still wonder if that would be bad. I think I intuitively agree with you, but I have come to distrust my own intuitions in these kind of things. So if you can have a life without friction, it might be actually very healthy for you.
So I disagree with that. I think for me, friction, I discuss, so I'm a lawyer in background, but also a philosopher. I use the parable of Hegel, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. And he discusses a fictitious battle in the days, like two people meet each other and kind of fight to life and death. And they want to be like the boss over the world, right? And one wins and the other loses. And the one is the master and the other is the slave, or the lord and the bondsman, if you want to be more nuanced. And he says, well, of course, first the master thinks like he's ruling the world. He has the slave and lets the slave work the land and do everything. But what do you actually have as a lord or the boss? You don't learn anything from working the land. You don't know, you don't develop your physical skills, your intellectual skills. You don't really bond with other people working the lands. So in fact, who is developing the most is the person actually doing the hard physical stuff, is facing the friction and is learning from that. And so I think the friction, overcoming that and building on that, is actually why we develop as people. And to remove that is a really shallow life, and also in terms of personal relationship. If you have a robot partner who only agrees with you, always want to have sex when you want to have sex, cleans your house, cooks for you, whatever, I could see many men in particularly finding that appealing, right? But what do you have there? You have no relationship. You have a slave. And that's precisely the imbalanced relationship. And the same is, for example, AI is right now used to bring back to life deceased partners, right? And you can upload kind of your chat history, and AI kind of continues to chat with you as if the partner were still alive. But the partner doesn't develop him or herself anymore. There's no experience. So what are you talking to is like a shallow version that doesn't develop anymore while you develop. So you get a more and more unequal relationship. And I think for me, the friction and overcoming it is why we develop. Otherwise, if you have no friction, you don't develop. You stay the same all the time.
Okay. You now wrote this book, and it argues for regulation, but there is regulation coming. In Europe, they're working on it. The United States is working on it. Companies talk about it. So, what will happen in this regard? What do you think will happen in the coming time?
Ooh, they're positive.
Yeah, I know it's a hard question.
Yeah. It's a very broad question. So what you see right now as opposed to earlier is, I think, regulators are aware, like, okay, this is coming and it's important. We need to take action. What they are actually coming up with so far, I'm not impressed with at all. So I think, but this is part of the dynamic between law and technology. Always law is a little bit late, and oftentimes too late to stop it, right? So what is going to happen is, especially the EU is now on track of kind of having a lot of data regulations and AI regulations, AI liability directive, product liability directive. So there's a host of directives, regulations in the data sphere, in the technology sphere. But all of those are very, 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 very general. They specify general principles which you could not disagree, basically.
Yeah, so it should be transparent.
It should be transparent. You should be accountable. You should document decisions you made. If you know you're gonna harm someone, don't do it. Like stuff like that, right? And then, like, take the example of deepfakes, and we discussed a bit the potential big harm it might be doing to women, to the rule of law, to media. The AI Act, as it is now, says about deepfakes, is it prohibited? No, it's not prohibited. Do they set substantive rules on it? No, they don't. They only say if you make a deepfake, in the metadata, you should say it's a deepfake, right? Yeah. What does that help? I don't know. I mean, it could help Google, Facebook, etc., to kind of scan all the metadata of content and then block those from their platforms. But not all deepfakes are prohibited or harmful. So you would need to do another check there. And of course, people who are really malicious won't put in the metadata of their deepfake that it's a deepfake. And lay people seeing stuff don't look to metadata to see whether it's fake or not. And they just see it and think, oh, it's real. So this is an example of this is the AI Act coming on. Like, this is the big thing advocated like around the world as the first big comprehensive AI regulation. And this is the type of rules we're looking at. And it's in no way enough to fight back on all the negative consequences of AI.
Yeah, but what I then hear is, okay, but that should be technologically enforced, which I think that's not going to happen, but that is what usually is seen as a solution. It's a technological problem, we make a technological solution.
Well, it's a typical lawyer answer. When they don't know how to solve things, they say, well, technology should solve it, or the market should solve it. Those are the two catchphrases we use.
So, and when will your book be outdated?
Soon. I think, no, I already said it to the publisher. Like, the moment it's published, it's outdated already. That's the difficulty. And so it's published open access, but to be able to revise it again, that they only allow it for like once in 2 or 3 or 4 years or something. And they said, well, actually, I want an update like in 2 or 3 months, and that's not possible.
Yeah,
so
you can ask an AI to write an update for you. So,
yeah, maybe. Although that might be biased. No, so what I did in the book to kind of prevent it from becoming outdated is I tried to give a lot of examples, but more as an illustration of the type of application or the type of problems that might arise. So I think in a couple of months, there will be a lot of new applications and examples, and maybe also some new legislation as well. But I think the general, and that's what is my concern, not this specific application here or there, or this specific law here or there, but the more general underlying societal changes that it brings about, and how law in general should respond to it. So I think that part would hopefully remain valid for ever.
Yeah. So I recently did a very, very, very tiny experiment that because there's a comparison to be made with social media, where 20 years ago social media came up, and nowadays we say, if we had only known all those problems that we would get, then we might not have been so enthusiastic in embracing it. Yeah. And when you type in problems with social media on Google, then it gives a couple of topics, and you get 12 topics.
Okay.
When you give problems with artificial intelligence, you get something like 30 topics. So I think not all of these are going to be real problems, and probably some of them are missing. Mm-hmm. So but what do you think would be the actual biggest problems of artificial intelligence that we can try to do something about? If you would have to pinpoint some things. We probably brought them up already, but...
So for me, the biggest question is, do we want to democratize these type of technologies? And normally I would be in favor of it, because otherwise you'll end up with the Silicon Valley parties having control over these technologies. And now I see myself struggling with this, because if you democratize deepfake technology or the other technologies, the grip on actual truth is totally lost. Like, you can make a deepfake right now already, which is highly realistic, in a minute, 2 minutes or something. And if everyone can do that and just post it online, you cannot put the genie back in the bottle. You cannot do that anymore. So yeah, one of the questions I have, like, can we find a way to really restrict the type of parties that have access to this technology? Probably no, because some companies have already put open access, some training data sets and algorithms. So it's going to be practically very difficult. But that's my main worry. And that's also like the main theme of the book, is truth as such. Like, what happens if we don't know what is truth anymore? And that, like, everything is based on truth, like the rule of law, the media, democracy, but also personal contact. Like, if you don't, right now, I can still trust you are real, right? In the future, maybe in 50 years' time, if humanoid robots become big, I might not even be able to. But especially online, and if you video call, and if you're, I don't know, it happens many times already that, like, a child is supposedly calling their parents saying, oh, I've been robbed, can you quickly transfer like 100 euros or something? And when that happens, like, and you fall for that wrongly as a parent, you kind of start to distrust everything. And that's also known with people who, for example, believed in fake news reports. Right? And what they do is become skeptical of other news reports, which are maybe sensational or something, but might be true. So you get just a general angst of media reality, but maybe also personal context. You don't know anymore. What can you trust? What can you not trust? This will have a huge impact on just society as we know it and personal contact.
And then maybe it will become a luxury knowing the truth. And then only people who can afford the truth would know the truth. And the others would just be in the bubble of fake news.
Yeah, maybe. But then also a question is like, what what is the truth? And that is also not, so it's not, we know what is fake and what is not truth, but what is true, that's part of the discussion. And there is another potential problem of AI, is that it usually, not always, but usually gives kind of the standard answer or the most likely answer. And you remove kind of the outliers from the debate. So if you ask AI to give you an essay on a relatively controversial topic, it will give you the majority view on something, which is usually good. Like if you say like, who won the elections in the United States, you kind of hope for the good answer. But also in many aspects, like part of democracy, but also personal contact, is debating about truth. And you know that from with friends or partners or whatever, or colleagues, the discussions are about like what is actually happening, what should be the solution or not. And there is no answer to it. And then AI should, I hope, also be used in that respect. For example, I discussed quite a number of times with judges who may want to use AI. And I think it might be dangerous. One, because it's standardizing solutions. Other thing is it fabulates sometimes. So it comes up with new cases which have never actually been dealt with and pretend they have been. But if you would use it, for example, AI, to say, give me 3 or 4 potential outcomes of this case as a judge and legal arguments for that. And I think as a lawyer, that's what you're trained to do. You know that there's no right answer to interpreting the law. Has this person done it or not? It's difficult oftentimes. That's what makes law interesting. Also, what type of verdict or sentence should be imposed? There's discussion over that. You see that with courts that have dissenting opinions. There are oftentimes a lot of dissenting opinions with valid legal arguments. So if you use AI and say, okay, give me 3 or 4 really good valid arguments and valid outcomes of this case, that could be conducive to actually diversifying a case law as such. So these are good options to use AI, I think.
Yes, but those options are, I think, as a technologist, are impossible at the moment, because an AI cannot assess whether something is valid. Mm-hmm. At least the AI that we have now.
No, but what? No, exactly. So it has no knowledge of truth or what we think is truth. But what you could ask is, say, give me, of this case, for example, 4 potential outcomes and the estimated likelihood that this would be something that real judges would give. So you can have the 60% of the judges would most likely find this, 20% this, 10% this, and 5% would hold this, or something. That could be possible.
Well, again, even as a technologist, I would say that's still outside the reach of what we have, though I think what this leads to, and that's probably where you should draw a line with AI now, is that you say, give me some options, and I, as a human, am gonna assess them. But there are, of course, problems with that, and I see 2 big ones. One big problem is that humans, if the AI is right 3 times, then from then on, the human is trusting the AI to do it right. And the second is that the training of humans will be done by AIs after a while. So the humans are going to learn the wrong things and cannot assess anymore what is right.
And if I can add another problem, like I think these introduction of AI or technology is usually also foreshadowing budget costs. So if AI is able to kind of help in this respect, it doesn't mean that judges have more time to deal with cases and content, but it would mean, okay, more budget costs because AI can take over part of their jobs. So you end up in a really horrible scenario. This is the most likely scenario, that this is kind of the dynamic. I also point, for example, the use of care robots. I'm not per se against it, even for loneliness. Like, I think it's pretty sad if you want to combat loneliness with elderly people to put a robot there. But okay, maybe if it helps a bit, why not? But you can see easily why that might be an argument for children, grandchildren, professionals to say, well, there's already a care robot singing songs with grandma. so I don't need to go so often to. So it's often backfires, although in principle it could help.
So, is there a topic that you would like to bring up that we missed?
So I think for me, the what I end the book with is really a couple of points. And for me, the biggest point is this debate should be had. Like we are having this debate right now, which I hugely like. Thank you for this opportunity. But I hope everyone will have this discussion with friends, with family, at work, because it's gonna be probably, we never know with technology, it might still fail, but probably it's gonna influence everything in society. So have that discussion. What do you think about it? Read about it and think about potential pitfalls. And then for regulators, which is one of the target audiences for this book in particular, I think there's almost no knowledge. Like within the EU, there are some civil servants who know about this, but for the rest, it's non-existent or very scattered. In Dutch ministry, for example, it's very weak. So this is what worries me. This is what should be really happening. More technologies, computer scientists should work at the ministries. And for example, in the Ministry of Justice, there's so few people with technical expertise. In Parliament, there's almost none, like who actually know about this technology. So and then you get like very flimsy regulation.
Yeah.
So this is one of the worries for me. And if you have that, you have the knowledge, then you can actually start building a societal discussion, setting benchmarks, because that's what I miss right now. It's just a discussion. Do we want AI? And probably some parts we want. And which parts do we want? And when? And by whom? And under what conditions? Very basic questions, which we should have now and not in 20 years' times when it's like with social media, already too late. So that's what I really, really hope for.
Okay. So the book is freely available. It can be downloaded. We will make sure the link is somewhere found in the metadata and where you can listen to it. But maybe you can just, if it's a short link, maybe people can listen to it now. What is the link?
It's not a short link. So
no, I was afraid of that. I got a very long one.
If you could just put it in the show notes, people can click on it. It's a PDF. You can just read it and share it with everyone you like.
Yeah, I actually searched for it and I got, it's easy to find, but then you don't have the book. It's just a page where you can purchase a physical copy of the book, but it's also a PDF. So
you can also buy it. So it's also available in paperback for, I think, 25 euros or something.
It was less than that.
Yeah. So that's also very affordable. But no. I will send you the PDF link. It is available. You can just click on it, PDF downloads.
Okay. Anything more you want to say?
Yes, I'm just thinking about everything you've said. And I keep thinking that whether human beings as a whole, like we collectively thrive or not, capitalism will thrive. So there will be certain people who will benefit from this tech boom, even if it's not everyone. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the future.
Well, you have more of the future than I have, so we'll see how that goes. Well, Bart, thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk, and I am very hopeful that many people will take your advice and take this book on board and talk about this, because yes, it's very important. I agree with that.
Thank you.